2023 year. A woman came to their secondary school. She was looking for her relative, a student of this school, 14-year-old Karina Dorokhina, to give her a New Year's gift from her grandmother living in Russia. According to the woman, Karina has not been in touch for a long time. Karina's mother, Elena Isabekova, told relatives that she had transferred her daughter to the Abai school, which is 1,200 kilometers from Talda Kurgan. But no one found her there either. It turned out that the girl had not been attending school for a long time either. The deputy director for educational work and the homeroom teacher called the schoolgirl's mother. The woman assured that her daughter lives with her grandmother in Russia. She also promised to provide a certificate from a Russian school to dispel any suspicions of teachers. Since childhood, Karina has lived with her paternal grandmother in Voronezh. Her parents separated when she was still a baby, and since then, an elderly woman has taken over all the care of the child. Grandmother was for Karina not only a native person, but also the closest friend. She took care of her granddaughter, helped with her studies, and did everything to make the girl feel loved and protected. Karina's mother, Elena, has not shown interest in her daughter for a long time. Only years later, when she had new children from her second marriage, she decided to take Karina to herself. She convinced her grandmother that she wanted to establish a relationship with her daughter, but in fact, she needed a free babysitter for younger children. Karina didn't want to leave, but her mother insisted. And as a result, the girl ended up in Kazakhstan. At first, she could still communicate with her grandmother on the phone, but eventually her mother forbade her to call. She told Karina that her grandmother no longer wanted to talk to her about her grandmother, that her granddaughter had forgotten about her. Gradually, the connection was cut off. Karina was left in a new house full of strangers, with no way to go back. The administration of Ashinsky Secondary School No. 7, where the missing girl studied, reported that the minor Dorokhina Karina studied in the 9th grade. She was admitted to school on April 20, 2023 year from Voronezh on the basis of the parents' application. Karina successfully completed the school year and moved on to the 9th grade. Like all children, she went on vacation in the first quarter of 2023, 24th of October 31st, 2023 of the year. During the autumn holidays, her mother came to school and took her daughter's documents, writing an application for Karina to move back to the Russian Federation. The school administration on December 28, 2023 year at 7:30 in the morning visited the family of Dorokhina Karina and found that currently the girl does not live at this address. In this regard, the school administration wrote a statement to the head of the city police department, Lieutenant Colonel Sherbaev, that the police helped determine the whereabouts of the schoolgirl. On the same day, the girl's mother also contacted the police with a statement about the disappearance of her daughter. On the same day, around noon, the mother and stepfather themselves came to school and once again wrote an explanation that the child was studying at a Russian school. The administration of the institution demanded that the mother call her grandmother and show Karina on video. The award of the video call grandmother said that Karina did not come to Russia, but her mother insisted on the contrary. At the same time, she said that her relationship with her grandmother is bad, and she does not show Karina intentionally. As proof of this, there are allegedly video recordings. The police immediately began to investigate all the circumstances of the girl's disappearance. Operatives of the search department of the regional department and police districts located nearby were connected to her search. The regional police department told GTSU earlier. The police interviewed a close circle of friends and relatives of the child, viewed CCTV footage, and checked taxi stands. Volunteers, military, and rescuers joined the search. However, the search did not bring any results. Karina lived with her mother, stepfather, and their 3 younger children together. The relationship between the spouses was tense. Relatives believed that her husband intimidated Karina's mother, deprived her of access to the phone, and constantly closes the house. The mother is intimidated, the children are all bruised. They say that he gets away with everything. Allegedly, he has some kind of connections with deputies, with the police. We assume the worst, explained Karina's relative Alina Srebnaya. The investigators' attention was attracted by the girl's mother and stepfather. Their behavior raised questions, they got confused in their testimony, and then refused to cooperate with the police at all. Moreover, when the administration of the Taldykorgan school tried to verify the information, it turned out that Karina was not in any of the schools in the city of Abay, where Karina was allegedly transferred. That is, the mother provided false data. On December 29, 2023, Elena was detained. Meanwhile, her husband Mercy Isabekiv recorded a video message to the president, the prosecutor general, and the Interior Ministry, stating about the torture and illegal detention of his wife. However, a subsequent check showed that his words did not correspond to reality. Volunteers who participated in the search confirmed that no violence was used against him. However, there was not a word about the girl herself in the recording. The man only demanded to admit lawyers to the pretrial detention center and believed that his detained wife was being beaten by the police. I am recording a video message to the President of the Republic, the brilliant prosecutor of the Republic, the Minister of Internal Affairs. Since December 28, my wife has been accused of murder, which she did not commit. On the 29th, at 1 o'clock in the morning, police officers took her out of the house with a fit child, calling for a conversation with the chief of police. An hour later, they put an earpiece on me, accusing me of being a witness. My wife allegedly killed me. The next morning, we were taken to the mountains, after which I was beaten by police officers in the mountains. I was told you'd be staying here today. Well, we'll kill you later in the evening. Taldykorgan returned, and it turned out that all this time for almost 2 days, I could not call either a lawyer or my parents because my phone was taken away. And they did not give me the opportunity to call even a lawyer or parents. In the late afternoon, my lawyer, one might say, accidentally arrived at the Department of Internal Affairs on his own business, and there, as if seeing me, he rescued me. My wife. Since then I have not seen her arrested. They arrested her, after which the lawyers were able to visit her the next day and talk to her. They haven't been allowed in since. Since December 28, my wife has been accused of murder, which she did not commit. On the 29th, at 1 o'clock in the morning, police officers took her out of the house with an infant, calling for an interview with the chief of police. An hour later, they handcuffed me, accusing me of being a witness, and my wife allegedly killed me. The man says at the beginning of the appeal. Then the stepfather of the missing girl told that the police took him to the mountains, where they beat him, and he hasn't seen his wife since the day of his arrest. The man assured that no one was allowed to see her and believed that she was being beaten by the police in the pretrial detention center. The prosecutor's office, he said, did not respond to complaints. That's why he decided to record this appeal. Interestingly, the man was already accused of lying at that time. In social networks, representatives of the volunteer organization Do Good Tekeli wrote that they were in the mountains that day, and no one beat him. Shortly after the arrest, the woman spoke according to her first testimony. Everything happened on November 6th. About 4:30 in the evening. They and their daughter were in Taldykorgan for 100 pit stops, which is rented by stepfather and husband Isabekiv. Their mother and daughter quarreled. The conflict ended with the fact that the mother strangled her daughter with a rope. On the same day, Isabekiva loaded the child's body into the back seat of a Jeep Range Rover, drove high into the mountains near Tekeli, and buried it there. But on January 3rd, Isabekiva changed her testimony, stating that her daughter was actually strangled by her husband, Mercy Isabekiv. He convinced her to take the blame on himself under the pretext that the woman was facing a more lenient punishment. On the 5th of January 2024, a man was detained and placed in a temporary detention center. The next day there was to be a confrontation with his wife. The case was complicated by the fact that even with the help of the mother, the investigation could not find the girl's body. He was buried high in the mountains in November. Since then, there have been heavy snowfalls and several visits to the place, along with the suspect pointing the direction, have not been successful. On the 8th of January 2024, Karina Dorokhina's body was finally found 40 kilometers from Taldykorgan in the Tekeli Mountains, in the mine of the Koksu mine. It was wrapped in cellophane, covered with branches. The girl was killed with extreme cruelty. It is known that before her death, her head was found, which may indicate an attempt to hide traces of violence. And the burial site was carefully chosen to complicate the search. In addition, the teenager repeatedly entered into an intimate relationship. Whether the stepfather was involved in this, the experts still had to find out. The funeral service of the conquest took place on January 12 in the Orthodox Church of St. Gabriel. The priest and close relatives asked for forgiveness of sins and rest in the kingdom of heaven for the deceased. After the ceremony, she was buried at the Yurkin Cemetery. The grandmother of the deceased girl and other close relatives declined to comment. The grandmother of the deceased demanded that the rest of the children be removed from the family. She did not rule out that they were also subjected to violence. The woman turned to the police with a corresponding statement. Later, the investigation will establish that Karina was raped for a year and then killed, after which they tried to hide their tracks. And in January 2025, a trial was held in the case of the murder of Karina Dorokhina. The girl's mother and stepfather were in the dock. They were tried under several articles of the Criminal Code of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Article 123 to Paragraph 3. Rape committed by a group of persons by prior agreement or by an organized group. Violent acts of a sexual nature committed by a group of persons by prior agreement or by an organized group. Why? Torture committed against two or more persons. Article 99 710-14. A murder committed in order to conceal another crime or facilitate its commission, committed with extreme cruelty. Committed by an organized group. Article 28. The organizer, instigator, or accomplice are subject to criminal liability under the same article as the perpetrator of the crime, taking into account the nature and degree of their participation. The presence of the stepfather's DNA on the girl's body became the key evidence. The judge, announcing the verdict, stressed that the court took into account all the evidence collected, including the results of genetic examination, which clearly indicate the guilt of the accused. The court examined the materials of the criminal case, to which the conclusion of the forensic medical examination concerning the victim was attached, and material evidence, on the basis of which the court concluded that it was you who committed sexual acts, and repeatedly, against a minor. The judge explained. The trial revealed horrific details of the crime. The court found that Karina Dorokhina had been subjected to systematic sexual abuse by her stepfather for at least a year. The girl's mother, being aware of what was happening, not only did not take measures to protect her daughter, but also actively participated in the concealment of crimes. According to the testimony and evidence, the violence was committed repeatedly by both the stepfather and the mother, with the use of force and threats. However, Mirsha Sobakiev began to assure that he did not rape Karina, that they did not find his sperm, they all lived together. And the DNA of all the family members could be found anywhere, and in the end, he promised to kill himself right in the courtroom. The judge and Sobakiev strongly denied his guilt and, in the last word, said that it was the mother who tortured her daughter, drove her out of the house and strangled her twice. At the trial, he did not accept these arguments of the defendant, noting that the facts of the examinations indicate the opposite. On the 31st of January 2025, an end was put to this shocking case. By a court decision, Sobakiev was sentenced to a life sentence with serving his sentence in an emergency security facility. And his wife is sentenced to 19 years of imprisonment with serving her sentence in a medium security institution. Elena was not given a life sentence because, according to Article 46 of the Criminal Code of the Republic of Kazakhstan, women are not given a life sentence. The defendants had 3 minor children. Their future fate will be decided by the guardianship authorities, but the grandmother intends to keep them. The press secretary of the regional court said that in respect of one of the convicts, a claim for the recovery of moral damage for 15 million tenge was partially satisfied in favor of the injured country. The amount of the initial claim was 20 million tenge. The court recognized AI Dog's Marchita under 3 articles of the Criminal Code of the Republic, and finally imposed a sentence of life imprisonment due to the fact that he killed his stepdaughter his spouse. That is, the mother of a minor victim of AI dogs, you are found guilty under Article 99, that is, murder, as well as torture. Regarding the Article 121st, there is no evidence, not a single testimony, of Elena Sabakeva. And you handed me a life sentence for Article 110. It was proved that Elena tortured the girl, beat her, drove her out of the house, strangled her twice. This is proven. The girl was coming to work for me, and I had to take her home because of this were sandalwood. The court concluded that it was you who committed other sexual acts repeatedly against the minor victim. This is evidenced by the conclusion of a molecular genetic examination, a forensic medical examination in relation to the victim.